Hello and welcome to Mark My Words. This is Mark Homer. I've got Dan Gannon here today with me. Dan knows a hell of a lot about classic cars. He's got sort of quite a specific sort of band of knowledge. I'll let him sort of expand on that. Known Dan for, I don't know, about a year. When we started getting into looking at classic cars, I've been around his sort of showroom a couple of times. And then he took Rob and I on a driving day a couple of weeks ago at Silverstone, and he's pretty good around the track actually. So that was quite beneficial for both of us. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I just give me a little bit of background about what it is you do, the kind of stuff that you specialise in, because you are quite specific in terms of your genre, your niche. Just give us a flavour.
Yeah. Well, we set up Car Ikonics 5 years ago on the basis that cars from the mid 80s through to mid 2005 sort of thing, that sort of era, were really at the height in terms of performance, but before they really got into too much electronics, too much computer wizardry and airbags and stuff, making them too heavy. So we really wanted to focus on cars that could deliver not only a great drive, but also hadn't fully appreciated yet, and they might have had a future value, uplift. Hence,
giving sort of a buyer a bit of juice in there in terms of, I don't know, value lift. So that's, I don't know, attractive to your purchasers. Maybe covers some of the cost of the maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, it's just something they can enjoy. Low interest rates, bond yield. The bond yield's just inverted. I don't know if you've seen that in the last sort of couple of weeks.
Yeah.
All that must, because I mean, if I think back maybe 10 years ago, this market, or even 15 years ago, this market, it really wasn't anywhere near as popular, was it? It's grown a lot.
Yeah, I think definitely over the last 10 years, as you say, money's never been cheaper than it is at the moment. Certainly for the last 5 years, it's been very, very stable. And I think that's given the average Joe real confidence to think, well, I can actually borrow 30 grand to buy a 50 grand car, and put 20 in yourself. And I know it's not going to jump massively. I know that it's going to be fairly sustainable because we've just seen that such a stable period. And that has definitely helped the classic car market in general. People that are buying £1 million or £500,000 plus vehicles, they don't need finance. When we sell vehicles at that level, it's paid cash. It's the £30,000 to £70,000 market that I think has really boosted the market.
But I imagine those people that are putting the $500,000 or the $1 million in, there are probably more of them, because historically, when they could just put the money in the bank and get 5%, or maybe buy a bond and get a little bit less, which they would see as sort of secure, they might have chosen to do that, or be more ready to do that, rather than today they're getting, I don't know, 1% in the bank. So they sort of think, well, I'm going to get practically nothing in the bank, so I may as well have it sitting in a car. And therefore have something that I can enjoy as well. Yeah,
I think it's a double-edged sword, because money in the bank's no good to anybody, as you quite rightly say. It's also a massive risk. So obviously some of these guys that are spending £1 million on one vehicle have fairly substantial portfolios, and they might have a bit of extra that they haven't got necessarily a use for. In this day and age, they can't utilise another I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, which is...
what sort of an asset class, or sort of cash?
Yeah, when you can probably need to redo this bit, but
yeah, it's fine.
I'm trying to think of the word, which is
what's it like
when you
invest?
Yeah, or when you've got a like if you want to buy investment bonds in any one year, you've got something you can make up, can't you? You can put 20 grand a year into
ISA.
Into an ISA. What's that called? It's a
annual investment allowance?
Yeah, an investment allowance, exactly that.
Okay,
so probably want to ask the question again. So what I was really trying to say was, they've used all their allowances up, and they've still got cash available in that particular year from earnings or whatever.
Okay, so we were, where were we? So you've got a situation where someone with £500,000 or £1 million, historically they may have wanted to put that into the bank. or maybe they'd have got a reasonable return, 5 or 6%. I don't know. A few years ago, maybe they'd have bought sort of government bonds or whatever. But now they're getting 1% in the bank. Some bond yields are now negative. So they sort of think, well, you know, I put the money in the bank, I'm getting pretty much zero. So I may as well put it in a car. Maybe it'll appreciate, maybe it won't, but at least I'll enjoy it along the way.
Well, that's it. And I think there's two things that really drive this. One is that, you know, these guys have fairly substantial portfolios when they've got £500,000 sloshing around to buy something with, and they might have used all of their investment allowances already for that particular tax year. And that is a good place then to put £500,000. It's insured for a starting point. But the other side of it is that we see cars now, especially at that level, they're not really cars anymore. It's automotive art. You know, this is the same as walking into a London gallery and spending £500,000 on a Matisse or whatever it is. So
I know what I would prefer to buy.
Well, there's always the dream that you might drive it one day as well. You can go and, you know, look at it in the garage, not see it on a piece of paper.
And actually, as we've sort of gone along, you touched earlier on about the electronics and the airbags and all this sort of stuff. That's created a situation where no one can really, or not as many people can work on cars now. The RAC come out if your car's broken down, and immediately, you know, 8 times out of 10, they just look at it and say, nothing I can do, you know, it's going to have to be put on the computer, and they just take it in. A lot of this old stuff, whilst it's specialist, and I don't know, maybe you've got a Ferrari and something specific, you need to take it to the specific place, actually you can't work on it.
They're not too complicated. The parts are very interchangeable, you know, so you might find, I mean, Ferraris like your Testarossa, for example, you know, they have certain common faults. So once you know what those common faults are, it's fairly easy to you know, check the systems, swap a part out for replacement, and 9 times out of 10, it'll fire straight back up.
Okay, so the market's been moving. It's changed quite a lot, probably in the last couple of years. I mean, I look at, you know, asset classes all the time. Watches seem to have been doing really well for some reason, but over the last, say, year or two, there's a lot more opportunities with the classic cars. You know, and we've touched on this. It's weird actually, because you'd imagine that as gold started to go up, as it is, and watches and physical assets, I don't know what art's doing, but generally it's doing better because they're getting more nervous. The next recession is closer.
Absolutely.
And they probably, lots of people would like their money into physical assets. So what's been happening generally in your market? Because it is niched. It's your sort of 80s onwards, aren't you?
We try to be. Obviously, we end up being left field of that sometimes. But if we look as a market as a whole, there's no doubt that 5 years ago there was a massive influx in the market in terms of new buyers and investment bonds and investment houses in London trying to set up classic car funds, and that definitely has inflated the prices.
Has it?
What we've seen over the last sort of 3 years is a steady reset of the market, I think, is probably fair to say. And the reason for that in the main is that you know, if you take an example, a 1989 Carrera 3.2, the very, very good ones of those, where they are few and far between because they suffered with corrosion and other things, are still fetching very strong money, you know.
And no less than they were.
For the right ones. But you're talking...
It's that,
it's the top 5% slice of where the cars
absolute
are.
Cream.
The absolute cream of the crop. They're still fetching that money.
And what does that mean? I know you've mentioned this before. It's mileage. You talk a lot about first paint. What else does that?
So the things we would look for is obviously low ownership. First paint, so original factory paintwork. You can measure that on paintwork. To a greater or lesser extent. You can't on metalwork, I should say, but you can't on plastics. But plastics are really sort of allowed.
So you get your little measuring device out and check the depth of the paint.
Absolutely. And then, of course, you have to back that up with a visual inspection as well. But certainly, that's a major factor. Condition is clearly then generally mechanical condition. But really, I think the main difference is, you know, talking about the top slice. Those cars have maintained their values. What we found from 5 years ago with all the investors and cheap money coming into the market is all the medium wave of mediocre stuff got dragged up because there wasn't enough cars to fill the demand. And that is as simple as. And I think what we've seen over the last 3 years, certainly the last 18 months, is that middle swage of mediocrity has definitely died back down. And there's been a bigger disparity between the two ends of the market.
That happens in every market. When you get this sort of boom, this whoosh, the top end probably, you know, it maybe doesn't do as well as the sort of medium and some of the crap. You know, I think of, you know, maybe sort of central London versus some of the suburbs, you know, in terms of property, or maybe some of the watches. You know, you'd get the stuff that isn't really, really rare, but it starts going up a lot because the market's booming and it brings a whole new set of people in who haven't quite got the money for the top end stuff. But then when the tide goes out, it's that stuff that suffers, and the stuff right at the top, which is in very short supply.
The collectors around the world that have the money still want those cars. They don't want the mediocre stuff.
That's interesting. So in terms of brand, how I mean, is it different across brands in terms of, say, the last 3 years? Have some suffered more than others? Therefore, is there more of an opportunity in some of those brands, or is it model specific, or how does that go?
It's a double-edged sword. I would say generally all brands have suffered the same. You know, as a sweeping statement. The things that have changed are that the things I've noticed. Aston Martins have had a real softening. You know, this is all the way from DB5s towards the top of the market, all the way down to...
What's a DB5 now?
A DB5 is 500 to 600,000 for a very good one. But, you know, 18 months ago, it was 3/4 to 850. So a lot of money.
I wouldn't be happy with that.
It's a lot of money for an old tractor.
But they do look cool.
But they are amazingly beautiful cars.
Very cool.
They are. We had one. We were very lucky to own one when I was a kid.
Did you feel like James Bond when you drove it?
No, because most of the time it was at the side of the road waiting for the AA man. But it wasn't the best experience. But,
so sorry, Aston's
Aston's as a whole I think have softened. But going back to why that is, I actually think that if you look at modern Aston Martins, I could be very unpopular saying this, they are using their brand to sell modern cars, which have nothing to do with Aston Martin. Their engines are now from Mercedes, and I think that will really suffer.
They've watered it down, haven't they? It's naughty. But they'll suffer the consequences.
There's no investment in the product. They're just selling the badge and using a car of any real description to do that. And all the models look the same. And I think if you look at brands like Ferrari, Porsche, they are still innovating at the highest level in their technology. And that ultimately keeps the brand alive and keeps the following. And that still trickles down to the popularity of the classic stuff.
It's interesting that a friend of mine went to look at, he deep down, he always wanted a new 911. He's had them before. And he wanted a 992, the new one. And he went and tried it. And then he said, I'm going to go and have a look at, the Aston. And he went and had a look at the DB11 and the new Vantage. And he just came out and he just said, I just can't believe how much better that Porsche is to drive. Fit and finish, as we've discussed. And he just said it was like the Mary Celeste in the dealership. You could see the salesman was pretty desperate. I don't get it. I suppose, I don't know, you get this a lot though in all sorts of industries. We were talking about the RAC earlier. That used to be a great service. And Rob had an issue a week or two ago. Maybe some of it self-inflicted, but the jury's still out on that.
Couldn't possibly say, could we?
But 7 hours for the RAC to turn up. And, the last couple of times that I've called them, it's been similar. And you just have to think that there must be a lot less patrols. When you ring up, you're not talking to somebody who's trained to the same level or the same calibre. And when you sort of do a few Google searches, you notice private equity's got involved. It's been through 2 or 3 hands, and you just feel like they're squeezing every last drop out of it, but to the sort of long-term detriment of the brand. And,
that sums it up perfectly, without a doubt.
Okay, fine. So, when we went to Silverstone last week and we went round in your RX-8, which was a lot of fun, actually. And it was great because we got to do it all day. And you sort of, you're sitting there sort of, pushing us on the right path, and you get enough time and enough thought and sort of breaks between to sort of improve. You said to me, the best car in the world is and I'm going to get this right because I think I had it wrong earlier. It's an SL65 V12.
Yep.
I don't know, which one is it?
It is the R230.
R230.
Yeah.
So that's a couple back, isn't it?
It is a couple back, yeah.
So tell me, what's so good about that?
Well, I'm slightly biased anyway because I have an SL500 as a daily driver. They're as cheap as chips, the 500s. But
what sort of money is a 500?
Well,
because I've been tempted actually.
Yeah, well, I bought mine with 60,000 miles on the clock for £7,000.
It's cheap as chips.
So it's ridiculous, but it's guilt-free.
Are you hearing it today?
Yeah, we're hearing it today.
Yeah, I want to have a look actually. Yeah. I like them. Yeah,
I run them every day. It's guilt-free, but every time you jump in it...
Because you just know the only thing is maintenance, and that's it.
Yeah,
well, a bit of insurance and tax, but
I think the thing is, you pay £7,000 for it, and every time you drive it, you go, this still feels like a 90 grand car.
Does it?
It's ridiculous. It just makes me smile.
Yeah.
And of course, it's very inconspicuous. Nobody minds you turning up in a 15-year-old Merc.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think that car from Mercedes was owned by Chrysler at the time. Was a massive statement in technology in terms of how their suspension systems worked.
So it was Daimler Chrysler.
At the time,
okay.
So things like they had hydraulic suspension.
Did they?
It was the first, or one of the very first, metal folding roofs. And
on the 500, it was hydraulic, was it?
It was optional on all the models. But
was it? Yeah.
I think obviously the AMGs came with it as factory specs.
Is that a bit like sort of air suspension on a Range Rover?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's basically a very, very up-to-date version of the original Citroen system.
Is it?
Hydraulic and air together.
It's
quite impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's expensive to run, and when the dampers go,
when it goes wrong,
it's almost as much as I paid for the car.
Is it?
but you've got to ignore these little facts.
But minor details.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're only here once, aren't you? So you've got to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
But going back to the SL65 AMG, there were 80 UK right-hand drive cars made,
which is important. 80's not many, is it?
No. It's pretty much as rare as any modern car gets, because why would they make them otherwise? And it was if at the time an SL55 AMG was the V8 supercharged car, they were about £110,000. If you wanted an SL65 AMG, there was a £50,000 premium.
Was there?
So they
on a new car,
compared to the SL55. So
big money that, for another 4 cylinders.
They really were pitched as a totally different level. And things like panoramic glass roofs, metal folding roof, V12 6-litre twin turbo.
So it had a metal folding roof instead of canvas? Oh, I didn't realise that.
So it was one of the first cars to do that properly.
Was it? I always thought it was SLK. That's interesting. So it started there.
Well, it was certainly one of the very first. But without a doubt, as a package, you still drive them today and go, this is an amazing car, regardless of price.
Yes.
And now for a 605 horsepower, 205 mile an hour convertible, from 2005, it was faster
605 horsepower in the 90s.
And they were limited to 750 newton metres of torque, restricted.
Because the back wheels would just be spinning.
Break the gearboxes, basically. So they just, even now that they were faster than an SLS when the SLSs came out.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
And this is a car that you can waft downtown at 30 miles an hour, does nearly 30 to the gallon on a run.
Does it?
Yeah, if you're not hooning it, which is not the point really, is it? But
seems you put your foot down and be doing 5.
And I think that as an ownership proposition, 80 UK cars, a lot of those haven't survived, obviously, because they got into the wrong hands. If you can find a low mileage car with really good history, it's well worth putting in the garage.
What sort of money?
The best ones are 60 to 65. We've just sold a 19,000 mile car, which is in a one-off colour, which is a £25,000 option with Merc for 60k. That to me should be 160k. And it's ridiculous that it isn't.
Well, that's great, isn't it? There's a bit of me. I mean, I can't get away from this sort of fag butt mentality, because I've always been a little bit like that. there is a big attraction to the 7 grand 500. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I mean, to me, how is that not going to be 20 and 30 grand in years to come?
I think it will be.
Yeah.
You know, all things being equal in terms of the environment and other pressures that we might face in the future. It's hard to say. There's a lot of them made.
Yeah.
So you are going to wait another 10 or 15 years, and by that time, life's moved on.
Of course it does. So, yeah, that's interesting. There was a website. I had Quentin Wilson on this show, and he gave me a really good website. It was, if you type it into Google, it's how many left.
Yes.
Have you seen?
Yes.
How many do you think would pop up of those 65s now out of the 80?
Oh, it's hard to say. I would probably say 60. 60 is a guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's, but it's not many, is it?
No.
And interestingly, you're talking about right-hand drive there. Clearly, there's a lot more left-hand drive cars because they're German. But when we've spoken previously, you've mentioned how important it is to, if you're having a collection, to have a good number of left-hand drive cars because they're sort of insulated in some way from, I don't know, issues in the UK, Brexit, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a wider market for them.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely sums it up really well.
Yeah.
We definitely look to have some left-hand drive cars in our collection. We actually do have. And it's absolutely right. It's safety in numbers. It's a bit like currency.
Yeah.
US dollar, biggest currency.
Yes.
I guess still, if it's not the yen, one of the two. But even so, the two
US dollars still
it's got to be, hasn't it? Yeah.
The Europeans think the euro. It's
definitely not, is it? So you look in safety in numbers really.
Yeah.
If you look at all the markets that are left-hand drive, there's a lot of mature markets. Obviously, Germany, France, Italy, but also all of the states. And that certainly gives it some stability. The other reason why left-hand drive, I think, is really important, especially for the European brands like Ferrari, Porsche, BMW, is they were designed to be left-hand drive.
Yes.
So one real idiosyncrasy is Japan. So their right-hand drive market, if they are ordering a Ferrari or a Porsche, they will order it in left-hand drive. And that's because that's how it was designed to be.
Yeah.
It's less prevalent now with modern cars, where modern cars, they have some design features built in case they need to be made in right-hand drive.
Yeah.
But certainly, if you go back to anything pre-2000, left-hand drive was designed to be left-hand drive.
So it's actually a better car.
It's actually a better car, a better drive.
Yeah.
Gives normally, like if you take an M3 BMW from the 90s.
I remember, I had one.
Yeah, they actually give more power to left-hand drive because the exhaust manifold is the right size and shape.
Yeah. And everything was angled towards the driver.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they flipped that bit over on that model, but there's a lot of things they can't, well, they didn't used to flip.
Yeah, so it's a double-edged one, really.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So if you could take all the models, all the brands, clearly this moves, but, knowing what has happened in the last sort of 3 years, what do you think the best model for investment is right now?
It's very difficult to say. I wish I had a crystal ball or I could hit rewind and do it again. But
me too.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you've got to look at history.
Yeah.
What models have done really well.
Yeah.
So things like Daytonas.
Yeah.
And some of the other very rare Porsches.
Yeah.
The GT2s, like 993 GT2s, for example, went from being sort of fairly normal money to £2 million.
Did they?
Yeah, and that's
are they that sort of thing now? Or?
Yeah, they are absolutely. Yeah. If you want a GT2 Evo or something like that, they're in the £2 million mark.
Yeah.
So I think that if you can find things like I'm just trying to think. Difficult to think, really. I mean, like that Mercedes we were talking about earlier, the SL65.
Yeah.
They have the absolute. All the fundamentals there to go from being worth 60 to 160 or even more when you look at how special they were as a model and an engine. And some of the Ferraris, again, I think the modern stuff is more tricky. You can look at the 458. And I think there's a lot of them made, and then the special editions of those vehicles. They're massively inflated. They're 350,000.
They're a lot of money, aren't they?
They're a lot of money.
For a Speciale or an Aperta?
Yeah, for a Speciale or something like that. They're a lot of money.
Apertas are 600-700, aren't they? 458.
It's just madness.
Which, amazing for those that have bought them, new from the dealership. I don't know what they were, maybe 300 or whatever. But
that's right.
Got to be high voltage.
Yeah.
Paying 600 or 700 for one of those.
Yeah, I just think you're signing somebody else a cheque for 300 grand personally and saying goodbye to it.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong.
Well, 911R.
Yeah, well, exactly. They went up to what, 700,000 or 800,000?
And what are they now?
Yeah,
sort of
200, 250.
Whoa.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to be that person, would you?
No.
And I think that's the one thing. The word of caution with this is to stay away from the fads, the fashions.
Yeah.
It's very easy to listen to Porsche marketing and go, this is going to be the last manual.
They love that.
GT3 styled car.
Yeah.
And then the next minute they've released the new one with a 7-speed manual.
Yeah.
And
the carbon fibre in a slightly different place.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you've lost 400 grand.
Yeah.
And so I think you'd definitely stay away from that. I would definitely look at cars that are off the radar. I mean, one of the cars that we've actually bought personally ourselves, which probably answers your question perfectly, and going back to the Daytona point, we've bought what's called a Ferrari 575 HGTC.
Which I've seen, I think. Is that the one I've seen? Yeah.
So
slightly less loved, maybe.
Yeah.
Which is...
Interesting.
The road you're this is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think if you're going to find something that has the potential to have a step change in value, it can't be popular yet.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they'd already be there, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So when you look at the HGTC 575, there were 98 factory built cars.
Yeah.
In left-hand drive.
Yeah.
They were actually faster around the Fiorano test track at the time.
Yeah.
With Schumacher driving than the 360 Challenge Sedan, which was their track car.
That was a quick thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
small V8.
And these were 2-ton GT cars.
Huge.
So carbon ceramic straight off the Enzo.
Were they?
The first production Ferrari to do 200 miles an hour.
Bloody hell.
And there's 98 of them.
And came from the 550 Maranello. I remember when I was in my early teens, I'd look at that and I'd just go straight to the back of what car and just go, what's the highest top speed? And it was always the 550 Maranello, which that was derived from.
And I think they'll go down in history as one of the most beautiful Ferraris ever made.
Yeah, they look cool, don't they?
And the last of the cars that were really built properly. Fantastic build quality inside as well.
Yeah. You had a prototype as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we were very fortunate to be asked to broker Michael Schumacher's development mule, HGTC.
Yes.
Which actually, when we've done all the research, even the brake discs on that car still have the Enzo production numbers on them.
Wow.
Whereas the road-going production HGTC has their own part number. So it's all that sort of stuff that we really get our teeth into.
And have you still got, is that gone or you still got it?
It's sold, but it's in storage with us.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
so you've still got it.
Yeah, we get to still pet it. Yeah, it's nice.
Well, maybe you'll sell it again at some point.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
But, so I think probably... If I had sort of sensible money, 150 to 175,000 pounds to spend, I think you'd be well placed to put it in something like that.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. You've got to love what you buy as well.
Yeah.
And that sort of insulates you from maybe not having amazing investment returns or maybe it dropping a bit or having a big maintenance bill. Actually, we've been quite lucky with the Testarossa so far. I just can't. I look at those Porsche 356s, and I just think they look unbelievable. I just can't see how people wouldn't want those forever. How much is one of those, and are they a good thing?
They range massively in value from sort of 70,000 up to 350,000, depending on the model.
Oh, okay, and condition.
Yeah. I mean, if you want a Super 90, they're at the upper end of that price point. For me, I personally dislike them, and I know I might be very unpopular saying that. They are very beautiful. Yeah. But for me, when I look at it, I just go, it's a Beetle with the Porsche body on it. Yeah. And it was before the 911 really had some time to develop and
was it?
And,
I've really never driven one.
I probably wouldn't meet your hero on this occasion. Not my cup of tea at all, I'm afraid.
That's a bit annoying.
But they are very beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's probably the sort of thing that if you have in your garage and you potter down the bakery on a Sunday morning, it's probably quite nice. Yeah. But that's not really what I want from a classic car.
I mean, thanks for your honesty, Dan. I've also seen a few replicas, which, of course, that's a different thing, but they look bloody cool. And I must say I'm tempted just for that sort of Sunday morning,
Well, I definitely think that a replica's the way to go. Yeah. Those cars are of an age now where people know what they're worth. Yeah. They're probably going to be very stagnant.
Yes.
And also the era of person that's really passionate about that sort of car, and this even goes for obviously the vintage stuff as well, the post-war era of cars. People are getting a bit old to drive them. The modern generation, they've not got the driving skills for manual gearboxes.
No.
So I think that
they're not double declutching, and they haven't got the mechanical sympathy, I suppose.
Exactly. And even, you ask a modern, teenager what a choke is, wouldn't have a clue. So I think there's going to be a trend for some of that older stuff to tail back, and
do you think?
And that's why we focus on the 80s, 90s, 2000s stuff.
That's interesting. I like pagodas as well. I still haven't bought one, but I just love the shape. Just seem very reasonable. I suppose they've come off a little bit, sort of in the last 3 years, but seem to hang around as well. When I look at them, they just, I don't know.
I think the pagoda market's a really interesting one because they are so beautiful. They've been restored to death by lots and lots of specialists. It's very important to make sure that you buy a car that's been restored by the right company. They're not the easiest things in the world to restore, and there are some finer details that need to be attended to if you're going to buy one. If you can find, again, maybe in that scenario, a right-hand drive car would be a good idea because there's not many of them. There's a lot of left-hand drive 280 SLs.
Not the California spec.
I think I'd try and find an original UK car. I mean, obviously, my preference would always be to find an unrestored car. So find one that's really, really good. And pay a premium for it.
What's a premium? What's one of those? I
think a good UK car that's been unrestored is sort of 130 to 150.
Yes, that's enough, isn't it?
I think if you want to, obviously you can buy a left-hand drive Californian car for 50 to 70 in good condition. But it's not the same thing. It won't feel as special as a UK right-hand drive one because of the numbers. And it's about that ownership enjoyment. Of having something
and how
special.
many of them there are, how sort of restricted it is. Okay. So Rob and I bought a Testarossa. I know you had a 512 in at the time, of which there are much sort of lower numbers. But we got this thing. I think we've probably had it a year. It's been pretty good. I think we had Rob's had a few issues with his cars in the last few weeks. I think he had 3 blow up in about 4 days, all off the road. And he rang me up and he said, Mark, I'm running a family of 4 on a 1987 Ferrari Testarossa at the moment. Things are getting tough.
First of all,
have you got a number for a car hire company, this sort of thing? And then the next day, he sort of rang up and said, "I've just gone to Costa Coffee and the Testarossa's blown up. Starter motor, pretty minor, and I think they're sorting it now." What's going to happen with something like that? In the last year, it's probably not moved that much. Are you better off with a 512? Tell me about that for the Testarossa 512 market.
This is where my passion for driving comes in and how we relate that to what we would buy. The early Testarossas are
hard work,
iconic in terms of their design, but fundamentally weren't very good cars. Centre of gravity at the rear end was far too high. The brakes were virtually non-existent. They weren't particularly fast. And when you look at the length of the lifespan between the very early Monospecchio, Monodada,
and the Monospecchio is the one with the mirror that's high.
The single flying wing mirror.
Single mirror.
And the centre-lock wheels, which are the really early cars. And you look at all the way through the lifespan that they went through to the 512 TR, right at the end, which was a bigger displacement. The engine was relocated and the gearbox moved out the way so it could sit much lower. It had really fantastic brakes, a lot more powerful. I would be looking at a 512 TR. Purely because ultimately I think that there are some exceptions to this because some designs have been sensational. Generally speaking, if a car drives fantastically well, it will always have a following. I think some of the early Testarossas, there were quite a lot of them. And
how many
people?
How many earlier Testarossas roughly?
Oh, I just couldn't tell you.
I mean, I looked at production and it was obviously on how many are the left or whatever. I think it was sort of several thousand.
I was going to hazard a guess at a couple of thousand UK cars. 512 TRs were substantially less than that. Again, that because they're that much newer, it's easy to find one in very original condition.
Okay, so what sort of money is a 512 TR.
A 512 TR, we've just sold a 7,000 mile car.
Yes.
All factory paint, which is very, very unusual for a Ferrari.
Yeah.
And we've sold that for £160,000.
Okay, fine. And a sort of a Testarossa earlier, you know.
I think 100Ks probably, 110Ks.
I think we give 105 for us, so similar sort of, yeah.
So I think that's it's the sort of money.
And are they relatively stable, or are they?
Yeah, I think that they're definitely going through a soft patch.
Yeah.
That being said, this is a bit of a fashion that 18 months ago when you were looking to buy one, they were very, very popular.
Yes.
And were carrying more of a premium.
Yeah.
So there is this sort of very fickle aspect to the market at the moment where 1 minute things are in fashion.
Yeah.
And then the next minute they're not. But I think generally speaking, they're stable where they are at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't really see them being a fantastic opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
I think that they're a very usable classic that looks fantastic.
Yeah. That's why we bought that. It looks great. If I'm honest, it's hard work.
Yeah.
But if I'm really honest, I find a lot of the old stuff hard work. So I sort of think to myself, well, most of them are like that. So I may as well get something that looks great, because as soon as I get in my modern car, it's so much infinitely better than most of the classics, just because the technology's moved on. From a personal point of view, it sort of doesn't make as much difference. But of course, it just depends. I mean, some stuff's great. I hired a 190 SL in the south of France a couple of years ago. That was good fun.
Yeah.
But God, hard work.
Incredibly slow as well.
Yeah, really slow and sort of dived and
scuttle shakes.
Yeah, and the heavy steering and like the Testarossa is really. I suppose they get power steering, they're sort of a bit better, but I suppose it depends what it is, doesn't it? I suppose you're into the sort of stuff that you're doing. You're into a lot easier sort of driving, aren't you? Sort of 80s onwards. I mean, the 60s stuff is much harder work.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
there's definitely cars took a massive leap forward from the late 70s through to the late 80s, for example.
Yeah.
Where, introduction of power steering, ABS, proper braking systems and everything else, massive difference.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that those older cars to drive are great fun for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And that's why you have them, because they
for
take...
the summer.
That's
how I view it. Yeah, and then I just put it in the garage.
And for an hour at a time.
That's it. That's exactly it.
If you're going to drive it to the north of Scotland through the traffic on the M6, you'll have leg ache.
You'll hate it. Yeah. And that's how I view it. And I don't take it out when I've got to be somewhere, or I'm even slightly stressed or whatever. It's sort of minute to turn the thing round, and it's a 6-point turn instead of a 3-point turn. You've got to have that mindset with them.
You don't have to go to the gym because with no power steering, it's a workout at the same time. You've just got to look for the silver linings in these things.
You have, and there are silver linings. I mean, if we think about road tax, what is it, after 30 or 40 years?
Yeah, it's nil. Nil.
Yeah. Is it 30 or 40? Ours is just outside. What are we? 87, 97, 077. It's 40 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
The no MOT.
Yep.
After 40 years or older, no capital gains tax.
Absolutely.
Yeah. At all on any of them.
No.
Regardless of age. And if you can garage it, the insurance can be really cheap.
Yeah.
Sort of £500, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not expensive.
Yeah.
Going back to the investment point and taxation, it's an interesting point. A lot of people have this sort of idea in their minds that you can trade up to 7 cars a year personally. That's actually totally fictitious.
Yeah.
It's a general rule of thumb if the DVLA or the government can't really catch you on something else.
Yeah.
But in reality, even with one car, if they can prove that you've bought it and sold it for financial gain, it is taxable.
Yeah, that's like a house. It's the same sort of thing, moving from sort of capital holding to trading. I've heard that, if you have this many or whatever, it's not that simple. As with a lot of things with tax, it is greyer.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, I think the way that we view it, and we've known of several sort of fairly high profile cases, the way to safeguard yourself against a real proper investigation is if you buy a classic car, insure it for road use.
Okay. Interesting.
Be seen driving it. Take a photo of yourself at the local car show.
You're enjoying it.
Service it.
Yeah.
And prove that it is being used as a road vehicle.
Yes.
And therefore it still falls into that depreciating asset class.
So critically, the intention was to use it, and it wasn't just bought for financial gain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. And in terms of, I mean, the big cost, I suppose, is maintenance, really. What stuff is cheaper? What's more expensive? What's really going to sort of sting you?
Well, it might surprise you to hear me say this, but the most cost-effective cars we've ever had are Ferraris.
Yeah, which is a bizarre thought.
Yeah.
But actually, the 458 we had was similar. It was great.
Yeah.
And the Lamborghini we've got now is quite different.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I can well imagine. I can well imagine. I've not owned a Lamborghini yet, so I'll save that for a later date. But I'll take your word for it.
The difference between V10 and V12 in terms of cost is or should I say a V8 Ferrari versus a V12 Lamborghini? I'd say the maintenance is double. Yeah. More than double.
And I think it's also what happens when they go wrong.
Yeah.
You know, we generally have very few issues with any of the Ferraris we've had in stock or any that we've owned. I don't think we've had one major bill. If you look at some of the Porsches,
which is sort of the opposite of what someone like me and most people would think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the Porsches have suffered terribly over the last 15 years with various engine problems, design flaws, fire issues. Yeah. And I just haven't seen that with Ferrari.
No, but that's 15 years, the newer stuff in terms of Porsches, probably not the stuff you're trading so much.
Well, I think, no, generally speaking, the older stuff is pretty good. Yeah. But certainly, I think Porsche went through a cost engineering exercise in the early 2000s, which didn't pay them any dividends in the end of the day, and also did a lot of damage to the brand. But Ferraris, if you look at, I don't think on the 355, Ferrari have ever had an engine failure.
Really?
Through road use. I mean, obviously, if you race them,
of course.
and they get stressed in different places. But they really are bulletproof vehicles. Obviously, some ancillary items have issues. Alarms, silly little things.
Yeah. But electronics. We had a 430, and it was just constantly the electronics and the whatever was all. There was always something like that going wrong with it.
Yeah.
And it felt a bit Fiat-ish inside.
Yeah.
But actually, the gearbox. No, we did have to have a couple of gears put on it.
Okay.
But but it was. I reckon it'd done 50,000 miles, and for a Ferrari,
Yeah, well, it's not bad, is it?
Yeah.
So no, I think that generally speaking, the major brands are not too bad. You do get some big bills with the likes of Porsche if you're unlucky. Yeah,
that's interesting. Because I've got a modern 991, and I've just had, I've had a few bits like, I don't know, the blower, stopped working a couple of times in the winter, which actually puts the car off the road because you can't clear the screen.
Yeah.
And I couldn't fill it up. The servo in the filler cap locked, and a couple of other sort of little things like that. Light on. Other than that, it's been really good, and I just service it every 2 years because that's the sort of program. So any stuff to sort of avoid? I know we mentioned sort of Lotuses, maybe you're not so keen on some of the modern Astons. Other stuff that's not good for investment, really.
Yeah, I think that the smaller brands like Lotus are difficult because they have such a finite following. Yeah. Everybody recognises and respects Lotus, but the people that are willing to actually buy one and own one are pretty few and far between. The more modern Lotuses, the new Exige S supercharged cars, fantastic product. Yeah. But even things like that don't have the R&D of the big boys like Porsche or Ferrari. And I've heard, I actually looked at buying one as a track car only 6 months ago, and I've had several friends say, well, where the gearbox is so close to the exhaust manifold that when you drive them on track, it boils the gearbox fluid and wrecks the gearbox. So it's that sort of stuff which you wouldn't expect from a major manufacturer. So I think anything like that for road use is okay, and will be a nice place to be, nice thing to drive, and a good ownership proposition. But in terms of real usability, certainly if you're like me, you like your track work and stuff, you've got to go with something like a BMW, which has been tested to within an inch of its life, and they throw millions and millions and millions at R&D, or Porsche or Ferrari, really. Yeah, interesting. And Lamborghini for investment, sort of any
older stuff which is good, or is it generally not?
Yeah, the older stuff, definitely. I mean, obviously, you can go all the way up to the likes of the Miura, and again, you're talking for the right model, couple of million quid.
Yeah.
And then, some of the very late Countashes are absolutely fantastic.
Are they?
And again, not very good to drive. They are a real shed on wheels.
They look like it,
but going back to the Testarossa thing, it's that 80s visual attack that you get when you look at it.
We all had them on the wall.
Yeah, exactly that. And that takes some beating.
Yeah. Dan, it's been insightful. I've learned lots again, as I always do when I speak to you. How can people find out more about what you do? I know you've got quite a lot of stock, haven't you? You have this stuff. It's physical. People can look at it. They can sort of touch it and feel it. Maybe not too many finger marks. How can people find out more?
So if you wanted to have a look at our website, it's www.carikonics.com. And it's a family-run business, myself and my father, Stephen. And we open 24/7 by appointment. The phone's always on. And we are always delighted to hear from people. So we also have a Facebook page, Car Ikonics, and Instagram as well, _Iconics. But type it in and it'll come up.
So what sort of stuff have you got in stock at the moment?
Everything from Vanquish S, 6-litre manual, one of the factory converted cars, really, really rare, superb condition. And we range from anything from sort of 400,000 down to the sort of 50,000. So we've also have 996 Carrera 4S in fantastic condition. That's actually only 30,000. And we've got a Porsche 944 Turbo Cup car, one of 101 factory-built race cars.
Brilliant.
Again, that's another car that, as an investment, if you compare a 964 Cup car at 300,000, this car's 90,000. And they're faster, better in virtually every way than a 911. So that's the sort of stuff we have in it. We do a lot of homologation race cars, specials, factory original works cars.
And you've got a load of stuff out the back in storage as well, which I always find quite interesting.
Yeah, that's almost more interesting because there's all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff in there that people have squirreled away.
It's good, it's good, Great, Dan, I appreciate it. Dan Gannon, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
You are welcome. That has been Mark Homer for Mark My Words.